All right, what is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here once again, and welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast. I am very excited because, as you guys know, I get the opportunity to talk to some of the coolest musicians in the music industry, whether they're established, whether they're up and coming and doing some really cool stuff as the guest that I'm about to bring on. I get super excited because I get the opportunity to do this, and I just honestly wouldn't imagine doing anything else. Today, I'm excited. I have two people on the podcast, always a special treat. I have NiiKO and Swae joining me for a very cool conversation. How are you guys doing?
What's up, Eddie? How's it going? Thanks for having us.
Oh, man, the pleasure is all mine. I always love having multiple people on the show because we get to have different perspectives and kind of bounce back and forth, and it's always fun to have this kind of conversation. Now, let me ask you guys this real quick. I've been asking a lot of musicians lately because obviously this year is a bit of a bizarre example compared to most years. And so if I can ask you guys, how has the whole pandemic/quarantine thing, how have you guys been handling that? Is everything okay?
Yeah, we're chilling. Honestly, it's obviously been brutal for all musicians, but we've kind of taken some positive out of it and started focusing on some other things that maybe we might not have if we were around playing shows and such. But busting out a lot of content, got a lot of new music on the way. We've been doing a lot of production, so I don't know. We've definitely taken the best out of the situation as much as it sucks.
Yeah. Are you guys based? Oh, actually, let me ask you this. Where are you guys based out of?
We're in Corona Del Mar in Orange County, like right next to Newport Beach, if you know where that is.
I do know where that is. I'm in LA, so I'm in the OC quite a bit. We go to San Diego a lot, so we drive by through it. OC is the spot, man. I love that place. It's so easy to hang out in the OC.
Yeah, it's nice and mellow. We like LA too. Honestly, we're in LA a lot, like when there's not COVID. And you said San Diego too. San Diego's awesome. That's like one of our favorite places to play.
It's becoming more and more popular, man. I mean, San Diego has always been very popular, but I feel like since LA has gotten pretty congested, people are starting to kind of like expand, kind of on the perimeter. And San Diego is obviously the next destination of choice for a lot of people. So that's what I hear from a lot of my friends down there. I don't know if that happens a lot in the OC, though. I don't know if people tend to like relocate to the OC. I'm not sure if that's a thing.
I think as of recently, I think people are moving out of here.
Yeah.
Really? Interesting. Why is that? Is it just because it's getting too expensive or because of the quarantine or what?
Probably a little bit of everything, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you guys are doing okay. I'm glad that it isn't affecting you too much. I know that a lot of musicians are affected by it, but I do feel like things are starting to pick up a little bit. I kind of want to get started by diving in a little bit into your backstory, if you don't mind me doing so. I want to know a little bit about maybe how you two met, how you guys started working on music, and we'll sort of branch off from there. And either one of you can start it. I know that it's NiiKO and Swae, but it doesn't matter to me. Whichever one of you guys wants to start, go ahead and let me know.
Yeah, so Mark and I actually have known each other since we were in preschool. It's funny, I was digging through my old room because my parents are moving, and I found the little yearbook from our preschool, and Mark and I are literally on the same page.
Damn.
So yeah, we've known each other for a while. We were on different sports teams and whatnot. We always went to different schools until college. We ended up going to SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas.
Ooh.
That's where we kind of linked up, and we were both doing frat parties at the time, and we just kind of put our heads together and started taking it a little bit seriously. And
yeah, we started to do kind of like the college parties, and eventually started to do like local clubs in Dallas, and then we'd come back and do parties in LA and clubs in LA and all that, and really just started to branch out from there. But
really snowballed.
Yeah. Can I ask you this? So the Methodist college that you guys went to, that was in Dallas, Texas, right?
Yeah.
How was the difference in music scene between Dallas and, OC, for example, where you guys are from, right? If I'm correct. Because in my experience, me being from LA and having the opportunity to travel to multiple places, there is a slight difference no matter where you go. The pop scene tends to be more or less the same, but when it comes to all the little nuances, especially in electronic music, I imagine there can be vast differences between cities. So I'm curious for you guys, as you guys were attending the frat parties and doing that sort of thing, what were the differences that you noticed between the music that you grew up here with versus the music that was popping over there in Dallas at the time?
Honestly, I wouldn't say there was a huge difference. Obviously, when you're doing frat parties, they want to hear Mr. Brightside. And
of course. Can't go wrong.
some sing-alongs. But as far as the music scene as a whole, Dallas offered a lot of different, types of shows. I mean, I know bass music was really popular in Dallas. There's a few like little house venues, so you kind of had it all, and it was a major tour stop for a lot of artists. So we weren't really missing out much being in Dallas. It's pretty comparable to LA.
Really? Now, in terms of like I would argue the vibe of the city, though, in your opinion, when you're going to parties, you're absolutely right. I think it kind of transfers across the board, no matter where you go. You know, party music is party music. But in terms of like musical creativity, when you guys were out there, I imagine you weren't studying music, right? Were you studying something else?
Yeah, NiiKO was studying business. I was studying like sociology.
Oh, damn. So two completely polar opposite things. And then so I guess what I'm curious about in terms of like the city's vibe, was there anything that drew you to doing music, or was it just like little hobbies that you had on the side, and then at some point you both realized, hey, we're both doing this pretty much all the time. We might as well do this full time.
Pretty much the latter. The last part you said was basically it. Like what we kind of, I mean, honestly, you pretty much just described it to a T. But yeah, so I mean, for the long story format, though, yeah, basically what you said. I mean, we kind of realized my brother. I'm a twin. This is Mark. My twin brother Kevin. He had a bunch of classes with Nick, and like we obviously all grew up together, and so we knew each other really well, but we didn't really know that we had kind of the same interests. And so Kevin was kind of the one who put it together for us.
And now he's our manager.
Yeah, now he's our manager. He's been our manager. But so we started to like link up, and we're like, fuck, we kind of have the same interests, blah, blah, blah. Like basically what you said, and kind of turned it from a hobby to a business. But it still is a hobby. We try not to take it too serious.
Yeah.
But that healthy balance of business though.
Yeah. And Kevin is your buddy, right?
No, he's my twin brother, actually.
Okay. That's cool, man. That is pretty sick. And actually, guys, just to kind of preface this a little bit, I probably should have given you guys more details, but NiiKO is Nick, so we know how to separate you two. NiiKO is Nick, and Swae is Mark, if I got that correctly.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well, here's the cool thing, guys. I mean, it's interesting. I've never talked to a pair of artists who's, a member's twin is managing their career. That's absolutely insane. I imagine that is incredibly unique.
Yeah.
That's insane, man. Now, let me ask you this. When Kevin got the idea of bringing you guys together, or however involved he was, I guess what I'm curious about is when you go to college, right? I think many of us, listening to this podcast has the experience of going to some sort of school. You kind of go there with a certain thought in mind, and, college kind of changes you and you come out the other way doing whatever it is that you want to do. Music is one of those things that is interesting because it isn't necessarily like an easy career path to follow, so to speak. Like it sounds fun and cool, but it's very apparent from the very beginning that it's difficult as fuck, And so I guess what I'm curious about is you guys starting business and then sociology. From that going to music, that is such a huge turn. You know what I mean? And I'm curious, like, what was it that was going on at the time that gave you guys that confidence to really believe in this? Even if it's still a side project, you still have to have that confidence to believe that you can do it. What was it specifically that made you guys feel like, yeah, this can actually be real? I'm curious.
I think we just kind of had this go-getter mindset where, like, no matter what, we were going to make it work. Like, we're super passionate about it, and like it's a hobby that we thoroughly enjoy. So to work hard at it is super easy. And we also just in the back of our heads, it's like we were coming out of college 21, 22, and like we would rather take a risk and try and do something we enjoy than just settle for something that we weren't as happy with doing.
Yeah, 20s is all about experimenting and like trying to find what you love. And honestly, like we've been lucky to be able to pursue our dreams and get after what we really want to accomplish. So we might as well pursue it and try and make it happen. Well, we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are already clearly making it happen. Now let me backtrack a little bit because I want to explore both your stories, because I find that it's always fascinating to hear where someone came from and where they ultimately end up, or, in this case, what you guys are working towards too. Nick, if you don't mind me asking, you studied business, right? If I got that correctly? Okay.
Yep.
Now I'm curious, when you went off to school to study business, why choose business over anything else? Now, obviously, it's a very smart choice. I think many people do it because you can do so much with it. But I guess I'm trying to gather my head around it. it's very clear, or at least I'm not sure if I'm safe in assuming this, but it's very clear that before college, you weren't really anticipating doing anything in music, right?
No, I mean, music was always just kind of a side hustle. But why business? I think, and it's kind of a lame answer, but at the time I just thought it was more of a safe bet. And
Mm.
I'm really fortunate that I actually did study business. I was a real estate. I had a real estate focus, and I think, I mean, down the line, real estate is definitely something I'm always going to be doing on the side.
Mm.
So,
are you doing it now?
I'm not doing it now, but I mean, I'm always interested in it. I'm always paying attention to it. So,
yeah.
But I guess where things kind of shifted to music, obviously Mark and I put our heads together and started working, but my minor was arts entrepreneurship, so how to make a living off your art.
Ooh.
Which really kind of inspired me further to take music a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Uh,
How interesting. How
yeah,
fucking
really
interesting, dude. I've never heard of what was it again? Art entrepreneurship?
Arts entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's very interesting. I wonder if that's something that is unique to Dallas or to that school that you went to. If you don't mind me picking your brain a little bit on that, what were some of the takeaways that you got from that? Because it sounds fascinating. I've never heard of a major focusing on how to make money through art. That sounds like what it sounds like.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of standard entrepreneurship stuff just skewed more towards an art focus, but they taught you how to make a business plan. And a big thing with the arts is just like how to get funding, and just it was like a really artistic take on how to be an entrepreneur. It's like outside the box thinking and stuff like that. So
Gotcha. I love it. And it seems like it's been working for you to some extent. Now, shifting over to Mark, Mr. Swae over there, you chose sociology, right?
Yeah, but that's just because I didn't get into the business school. I'm not gonna. I'm literally like that's literally the only reason I chose it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh shit! So you had no interest in sociology whatsoever?
None.
Wow. So even when you were there, did your mind change at all?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, yeah. So I didn't have any interest in it at first, but like I thought because it was economic sociology was like the focus. It wasn't just sociology straight up because that's like way too heady. So I mean, I was really like interested in some form of business, and I didn't get straight into the like real estate or like actual business school. So I wanted some form of business as my major. So economic sociology was like kind of like my. I kind of knew I was going to be doing it.
Yeah.
But and I had no interest in sociology at all. But I actually kind of developed an interest, and it was really interesting because I love writing and I love history, and a lot of my major was kind of like specific or regional history rather. And like applying like a lot of writing and like applied I don't know, whatever. But yeah, shit. But dude, I really had no interest at first, and honestly, by the end of it, I was really into it. So it was actually really cool.
Interesting. What era is one of your favorite eras to like study?
Well, so I did like a lot of different types of history classes. Like I was doing like anthropology, like what I really liked. That was really fun for me. It was just cool, like studying humans and the history of humans and human interactions and all that. Like I did some like linguistics classes, so I was doing stuff like I don't know, way back to like before I don't know, like caveman era, and then all the way like all the way up to like almost present time. So it was cool. Like honestly, I can't really pick like one area that I really liked because each time period was so different, and like what I studied was so. I don't know, because some of my classes were specific time periods, and then I would take like a linguistics class that was like focused on the 1900s, and then do like this crazy anthropology class that was about like human origins. So it was all over the place, but it was really cool.
Yeah, I love it, and I know it seems kind of random to ask about college stuff, but to me, you guys are relatively young. You guys are in your what, early 20s, I would say.
24.
24. Yeah. What was that, Mark?
Yeah, just double checking.
Well, that's still that's what, mid-20s, I would say, but that's still relatively young, and you guys are doing some really cool stuff already very, very quickly, which is interesting for me because I always like to try my best to get the big picture, so to speak. Everybody has a different path, everyone has a different journey and make different choices. There's some people that never went to college. As rare as that is, there's some people that haven't gone to college and just went straight to doing music like right out of high school. But what I love about your stories, excuse me, is that you guys had these two different paths, had a very, I would say, very regular path in college. I would say, like most people do, they choose business or whatever. But then at some point, you found this common love for music, which I love, and you tapped into that. Now, the genre that you guys are in, that you both make, I believe that's future bass, right? Or future EDM kind of thing.
It's more like I guess it's not really future bass anymore. We started making future bass. Now we're pretty much back to our house. Like we started actually when we first started, we were making house music, and then we got really into like the future bass and trap scene because that's what we were listening to and like attending at the time.
Yeah.
But now back to making we do like kind of like, I guess you could call it like electro pop, like kind of shit you would hear on the radio. Like our newest song's playing on BPM right now, which is pretty cool for us. But we also do we still like to make like our harder house music too. Mm-hmm. So like stuff you would hear maybe like
in the club.
Yeah, club or hopefully festivals, and get supported by some big DJs. That's the goal. But yeah, I mean, we love making stuff that you will hopefully hear on the radio, and our last song Friends has been doing pretty well over on BPM and like on other like terrestrial radio channels. So
yeah. Now let me ask you this: why transfer from like say future bass back to techno where you originally started? Now I think that's a very smart move, and I think it's definitely a genre that's popping.
Well, for us, more just about what we were playing, because we just we had a lot of fun making that type of music, but we weren't really ever playing it. Like we would go play in the clubs, and it was just all like fun house music and that type of stuff. So we kind of transitioned back to like making stuff that, because like I said, when we started, we were making stuff that we'd play in our sets, obviously, and we kind of went down like a little bit of a path of just making like kind of what we liked at the time instead of making what we thought what we were actually playing and like what was NiiKO and Swae. And so we made a big transition last year and kind of tabled all of our releases, and went back into the studio for like 9 or 10 months. Didn't release anything till August, and that's when we came back with like our new sound and like this new wave of like future house and electro pop and all that good shit.
This was last year. Was this pre-lockdown?
Yeah, it started pre-lockdown, like
in October.
Yeah, last October. So like it ended up like working out pretty well. Like we actually we got really lucky because we already had tabled everything. So like it wasn't like when everything hit and like shit hit the fan for a lot of people who were like pulling releases and stuff. Like we had already pulled all of our releases, so it wasn't really a big deal for us. Like obviously, because we missed out on like shows, and our residency in Vegas is like didn't happen this year. Basically, we did one show. It was the last weekend of Vegas being open, and then like the next, literally like 3 days after, the shit hit the fan. So
yeah,
that's definitely what we've missed out on the most. But like we kind of in a sense got lucky because we already had we didn't plan for the pandemic. Obviously, it was just a crazy coincidence. But we had planned on like not releasing anything until we felt we were ready, and then all this shit hit the fan, and we're like, okay, well we might as well keep waiting anyway, because number one, we weren't fully ready yet, and number two, there's no point in putting out music in April or May when streaming was down, there were no shows, like no end in sight, all that.
Yeah. Can I ask you why? I know that we are kind of covering this topic of you going back to what you like to make and the new trajectory that NiiKO and Swae is on. But prior to that new trajectory, and prior to tabling everything, were there any specific events or things that happened that led you to decide that, hey, it's time to table everything and restructure ourselves? Or was it more of a gradual that just kind of happened over time, if that makes sense?
I think we just knew what we wanted, and we weren't happy with what we were making at the time, and we knew we could do better. So we just figured we'd, take the time off to really do it properly, and, stack up a bunch of songs that we were genuinely stoked to make and stoked to play out. So
yeah. How did you know that you weren't happy with it? Now that sounds like a very stupid question, honestly, even coming from me. But like the idea being is that when you're kind of in it, when you're very focused on making shit happen, I know that it can be very hard, and sometimes our view as to what we're doing can be biased at times, especially in this kind of culture that we're living in, where it's like hustle, 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 put stuff out there, get it done. To me, it seems kind of interesting that you guys had the foresight to look at what you were making, and without even thinking, without a hassle, to just say, hey, it's time for us to restructure. Let's do it. That's what I'm kind of curious about, because I know that you're saying that, oh, we knew it wasn't good, but I guess my curiosity was, did you know on an instinctual level, or did you take time to analyze it and say, hey, we could do better, if that makes sense?
I mean, Mark Swae touched but I think it really comes down to the fact that we weren't really playing the stuff we were making.
Yeah, and also it was more for us about like longevity and shit too. Like we were like really at the time like focusing on making this a career, and like just really said to ourselves like if we want to give ourselves the best chance of doing this forever, like we really got to go back to making what we love and what we're playing, and not just like trying to like, I don't know, like we at the time we really did love what we were making, and it's not like we were like bummed by any means. We just like knew that we could do way better, and like yeah, so
interesting. I find that very, very fascinating because I'm speaking out of my own personal experience, because knowing that you can do better. The thing is, I've met so many different kinds of musicians, many very successful and some trying their best to kind of, break through or whatever. One thing that I find that's a bit of a pattern, and I'm curious if this applies to you at all, is that, sometimes seeing as, hey, this could be better, seems like a very positive challenge, and it can get some people excited to try and make better things or restructure or whatever, which seems it's what you're doing. But very often, I would say maybe half the time, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would assume about half the time, you get the opposite feeling. There's some people that are very, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a very painful thought to get across. You know what I mean? To think like, wow, I poured all this effort into this music that I made, and it's just not working. And so I'm just going to hunker down until I get that specific thing right. I guess what I'm curious about is your personalities together, NiiKO and Swae. Have you guys always been very much like a progressive in the sense where all that matters is just to kind of move forward, or do you guys ever dwell on things? That's a pretty broad question, but I wonder. That's my curiosity.
No, definitely move forward. Definitely be optimistic.
Yeah, I can't really dwell on things. Also, to touch on your other point, like if people say they can't do better, like they're either lying to you or they're probably like Calvin Harris or someone, because unless you're literally like Calvin Harris, because I don't know how he could do better. But yeah, everybody always has potential to do better, and like that's kind of the thing, is it's like you don't need to force out releases. Like set a strong game plan, make the game plan happen, but like at the same time, like make sure you're holding yourself accountable to your best self, because you can always push yourself and make stuff better.
Yeah, you sound like a true businessman. That's a talk of a businessman right there.
Business.
The plan, and then making sure that it actually executes better.
Yeah, I don't want to just like put. Yeah, you gotta have a solid plan.
Yeah, let me ask you this: the plan. Obviously, I think everybody's plan has changed quite a bit because of this year. That's not an exception to anybody. Everybody's plan has changed. Here's one thing I noticed about this year, 2020. I would say when the quarantine first hit, or the lockdown first hit, I think, I don't know when specifically, but I want to say around May, all the way through June or July, there was a huge influx of releases. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but there was like a good 2-3 months where there was just constant amount of releases, more than average. And then right around maybe August, maybe even September, it started to die down a little bit because it started to get oversaturated. Now, this is just kind of me speculating out of what I saw. I don't have the actual stats. But for you guys, it seems like, what I'm understanding correctly, it seems like you are very good at creating a plan and kind of sticking to that plan and adjusting to that plan and whatever. Very business oriented, which I like. I'm curious, in this kind of environment that we're in your opinion, what do you think is a good plan for artists like yourself, who are kind of on the up and up, who are succeeding, who are like experiencing some like successes, but there's still a shit ton of competition and I would say a lot of saturation in the market, but you're still somehow finding a way to break through. So what is that plan that is working for you, if that makes sense?
So I think, having 10 cohesive songs that you schedule out and can release month after month, gives you a nice consistent plan to, start with. And then what Mark and I have been doing during this time is just like focusing on content too, because that's really helped us separate ourselves, just showing, the world your true self, whether that's through Instagram, Twitter, and going hard on TikTok too.
Yeah.
I think all that stuff's super important right now, and people might not take that as seriously, but we try and focus on that every single day. So
yeah, because it's just as important as music, really, especially right now when like nobody's really doing shows, or like the shows are, a lot of them are live streams right now. So you have to build your audience outside of just your monthly listeners or whatever on Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah. For you guys specifically, how do you show your personality on all those social media accounts? Like, and I guess what I'm trying to discover a little bit is your personality as you two. How would you describe it, and how is it that you kind of portray that through all your social media accounts?
I think we're just goofy.
Yeah, look at our last 10 posts on Instagram. Probably it'll give you a pretty good. Literally, if you look at our Instagram, you'll probably get a pretty good idea of us. We're goofy. We don't take anything too serious, but at the same time, we do we take our music and business serious, but we also don't take it too serious because we do like to have fun and make people. Or at the end of the day, if we can make someone smile or laugh on Instagram or Twitter, TikTok, whatever, I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah. I mean, I think that speaks volumes across the board. I want to discover a little bit more of your actual workflow, if you don't mind me exploring how it is that you two work together. I have had the opportunity to interview many duos, maybe bands, and it's always fascinating to me to discover the dynamics and how they work. Sometimes when it comes to bands, usually there's a leader and the guy who writes and everybody else kind of follows. But it seems like you two work hand in hand very equally. And at least that's what I'm assuming. But I'm curious if you can kind of give me a sneak peek of how it functions between you two, from creation, from the idea to the actual product.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Mark and I really complement each other. When it comes to making music in the studio, it's not really one person doing something and the other focusing on something else. But I guess generally how we like to work is, we'll get a top line in an acapella. Someone will write a song, and then we really just go from there and just write around the acapella, the song, because we feel like we have a lot more freedom that way.
Yeah, we like to work a lot around top lines. I mean, we will build instrumentals too, but a lot of times when we're building an instrumental, it's more for a clubbier track or more of a banger, if you will, because we do like to work a lot around top lines. And we, especially right now when everybody's just been in the studio and has a lot of free time to send music around and demos, we've been getting so many good top lines. So we've been pretty busy working around our more vocal tracks.
Yeah. Do you guys ever work the opposite way? Do you guys ever just start with a beat and then work up to the top line?
Yeah,
for sure.
Or we'll build around it, another top line, and the top line will fall through or whatever. Someone else will take it, and we don't get it, and then we'll just have a sick instrumental, and then we'll start pitching and writing around the instrumental, which is actually what we're doing in the session 12.
Yeah. When it comes to your inspirations for the kind of music that you're currently making, what are some of those artists that you guys have taken a lot of inspiration from and found a way to kind of mix into your own?
So Calvin Harris, Tiesto.
Yeah.
We loved Martin Garrix growing up. Our music isn't crazy. Some of I guess maybe we have a couple tracks in the works with some sick collaborators that are a little bit more on the progressive side. But the
European influence.
Yeah, but we do have I guess a bit of European influence, and I guess you can see that our song that's coming out on Thanksgiving it's coming out on Don Diablo's Hexagon, so that's a very European style label. And we worked with a Belgian singer, and really just had a lot of fun kind of chasing a little bit that hot style right now in Europe. And we made a very groovy, housey dance track, and we're super stoked on it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, we don't like to limit ourselves really, but at the same time, we do have a bit of a focus on our sound. So yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask you something completely, absolutely random, or at least when it comes to the music stuff?
Dude, we love random. Yeah.
Oh, you love random. Okay. What do you think about unicorns?
Unicorns are dang.
Hell yeah. No, I fucking love it. No, actually,
unicorns are real.
Are they real?
Yep.
No.
Whoa.
I guess it depends on who you ask, right? I mean, what is real when you really think about it? It's
real, right?
It's fucking insane. I mean, dude, when it comes to conspiracy theories, I can go super fucking deep.
Me too.
It's insane. I'm actually kind of curious about this one other thing. When it comes to UK, or not UK, but Europe music, have you guys attempted that market before? Have you guys had some fairly good success overseas, in Europe?
No, but with this, so with all these new releases, we have kind of found a little bit of traction in some European markets.
Yeah,
we're getting a lot of streams from Germany, some Scandinavian countries. So
yeah, it's kind of just, I mean, like house music and the style of music we're making right now is just so popular worldwide, and like honestly, in Europe and parts of Asia too, it's just so big right now. So a lot of the songs we've been making and with putting them out on certain labels who have big like listeners and fans in Europe, it really has helped us get like at least a foot in the door in Europe. Like Nick was saying, we did our first song was kind of more of a slap house vibe, and it did really well in Germany because that's really popular in Germany right now. Our last song, the one that just came out, Friends, is doing well in like Norway and like a couple like cool European countries. So
Yeah, I love that. And here's what I'm curious about is I just had I had Tasoki on the show not that long ago, and he was explaining to me how, you know, he's from the UK, and he was explaining how at times the European market can be a little challenging. Not always, but at times it can be, because the way he described it is that it's a very elitist market, so to speak. And I don't like using that term, but I guess it explains it as simply as possible, is that people tend to know what they like overseas, at least in Europe, and to really to really introduce something new as a new artist can be challenging at times, versus at least his experience in the US. And so the fact that you guys are experiencing really good amount of success in the UK, in Europe, is quite fascinating to me. And it's very impressive that you're doing this, you know, almost on your first try, right? Like on the first attempt.
that's interesting that he said that, because I actually kind of thought it would be the opposite. I just feel like Americans are so stuck up and already know what they like. But that is
what I would argue, right? That's what I thought.
But that makes sense to me, because I think it really just comes down to what music you're making. For someone like Tasoki, he's a little bit more bass heavy, and I see that being a little bit more popular in the US than in Europe. So for us, we're making this like, you know, like more electro poppy house music.
I think it's more relatable. Like the style we're going after too. I think it, like, kind of to back up what Nick's saying. Sorry for interjecting, but I think it's easier for someone in Europe to maybe relate to the style we're making than someone in America to relate to, or opposite. I mean, what you were saying about Tasoki, but yeah, it is interesting though. Like I think, well, number one too, I think vocals help, and we have been working with a lot of European artists
and European labels,
but also like, yeah. Honestly, it really is interesting though, because I actually did think it would be the opposite. So that's kind of interesting to hear someone from Europe's opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to elaborate a little bit, because it is an interesting topic. I definitely am citing more towards you, but obviously everyone's experience can be different. The way that I understood it is that, you know, when it comes to America, so to speak, where we're both from, even though people do tend to like what they like, it can be very vastly different across the board. Like if you can go to a different city, I guess there are some different nuances on what people like, and the people tend to be a little more, I guess, accepting of weird things. Whereas in Europe, I guess the consensus is, and again, this is coming from me, an American, so take this lightly, everyone. I guess the consensus is that because the music scene has been there for quite a while for a lot of those styles, it's very much more engraved in the culture as opposed to over here, if that makes sense. And so people tend to be more one-sided, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm curious then, when you guys was first starting out and you guys were playing the clubs and playing the scene and all that stuff, did you feel like there was some sort of pushback from the audiences that you guys were playing for over here in the US? Like, did you ever feel like there was some, not necessarily tension, but some like disagreement as to what people actually liked in your experience?
No,
not to be broad about it. I apologize. I'm just curious.
My first thought is no.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think maybe it's just the gigs we were getting or the people we were playing for, but I don't know, that it's making me think though. I'm trying to think of maybe a time where
I mean, it's okay if you didn't. That's a cool thing, that if you never experienced any sort of pushback or any sort of like people not liking what you were doing. But it is rather interesting because I feel like you guys find yourself in a very unique place. You know, I feel like, you know, especially in the electronic music scene, you know, you kind of, in my experience, obviously I'm not always right, but in my experience, you kind of have to find that little niche that you're good at and stick to it. And then at some point it works, and then you kind of can branch off and do whatever you want. But it seems like from a very, very early on, you guys have been very comfortable with what you were making, and people seem to be very receptive towards it. So it's kind of giving you this freedom to kind of bounce back and forth, sort of, if that makes sense, you know. And I wonder if that has anything to do with your experience, with your personality, with how you approach music. I don't know. I'm just speaking broadly here.
I mean, there's been times for sure, like where we've maybe we've been booked in like at like clubs or parties or whatever, where like maybe at first we kind of had to feel the crowd out a little bit more.
Yeah,
like
of course.
You definitely like start playing stuff that they're not vibing at all, but then you just like switch. You kind of just get the vibe, or like I don't know, you figure it out by watching what the opener is doing. But like that's very rare, because I mean, when we're like a lot of times when we're like when we're in Vegas, we're supporting like big acts, you know. So we're like we've kind of developed our sets and our, you know, kind of know exactly what people want to hear there, and it's worked at like a lot of other clubs across the country and stuff. But I mean, when we're headlining, like for the most part, when you headline, people like I guess are there for you, so like they kind of are about hearing what you have to play. There's definitely been times like you get booked in like Miami and stuff where people are a little bit more like not as receptive to hearing new things, and it's like you kind of have to cater a little bit more to the crowd. But that's part of being like a DJ and a musician and a producer, is that you got to be versatile, and if you don't try and cater to the crowd, you're just not doing a good job at all. So
yeah, I'm curious, when it comes to your sets, whenever you play a place like Miami, for example, that's a great example, by the way. Like, people know what they like down there. Do you approach a lot of these gigs, like now that you've kind of had some experience, you kind of know, you know, what flies wherever you go, you kind of know what's popular. But I guess when you first started, how would you handle, if it ever happened, I'm not sure if it did, but if it ever did happen where an audience just was not feeling most of your set, which has happened to people?
It happened in Miami one time. Because we got booked at, like, it was Miami Music Week, and we literally got booked in like an all hip hop lineup, like for a crazy weekend at a pretty cool club. And so we're like, all right, whatever. Like, they probably still want us to do our thing, and so we started doing our thing, and it just didn't work at all. But like, luckily we were prepared, and so it ended up being all right. But like, so like, there's been times like that, but I mean,
in that situation, we were just over prepared, and we were able to, you know, switch up what we were doing and you know, play actually straight hip hop.
Because we had a feeling, but like, yeah, I mean, but that's like rare. Like, we don't really that's more in the beginning of our career, where we've definitely been able to be more selective and making sure that gigs that we take are aligned with like what we're trying to do, you know, and not just like taking anything, which we've been able to do. But
yeah. Can I ask you something? And this is just more of a personal curiosity. We can actually even remove this too if you wanted to, but I'm curious, does it ever bore you to have to kind of cater to a crowd?
No, it's
honestly, playing in front of people is fun, and just
it's
getting to play.
It's sometimes it's a challenge, and it's like a good challenge. Like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it can be annoying at times when you're like, oh shit, you thought like people were definitely gonna vibe with it, but like, honestly, like, it's nobody's fault. It's obviously not the crowd's fault. It's not your fault, but like, it's fun to switch it up. You see them starting to get into it, you know, you figure out like what they like, and then it's fun. It's a good challenge. Yeah. Like, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was it.
No, I mean, I love your attitude, dude, because I think the most successful musicians think exactly like you do. Excuse me, my throat is just not there today. Weird. It's the changing weather, man. It's all cold all of a sudden, you know. It's yeah, you know, for those of you who are not in California, California has tremendous weather mood swings. We just went from like 90-degree weather to like 70 overnight. It's stupid. Anyways, I guess what I'm curious about is I come from more of the traditional band environment. Like, that's where I got started. Mm-hmm. I'm a drummer. And one of the things that I experienced while playing for bands and going on tours and stuff, it's very different from the electronic music scene. Like, whenever I've gone to a rave or whatever, it's definitely a very different environment. Very, very fun. But there is this sort of like you were saying, I feel like people kind of know what to expect when you're there. And I want to say, when you're in a band, so to speak, like when you're in like a rock band or whatever, very rarely did I ever encounter an environment where like these bands, where a band was playing in a bad, how do I say it? I guess, like, in my experience, all the rock bands would play at rock shows. It was very weird where someone would be booked at a non-rock show. You know what I mean? But it seems like with electronic music, it can happen quite a bit sometimes, where like you take a show and you might be playing the wrong genre. Do you find that in electronic music, in the electronic music scene, do you feel like if you're playing the wrong genre in your experience, do you feel like everyone is kind of bummed at first, but they're willing to give you a shot and just listen to it? Or do you feel like people are really just get me to vibe, and it's your job to get them to vibe?
Yeah, I think it just depends. Yeah, what you're playing for. That's a tough question, but I think that
it all depends.
For the most part, you can do a good job of kind of, creating that vibe and getting them engaged. Whether that's your music or your stage presence or but I think for the most part, like an electronic crowd is a little bit more forgiving than, say a metal band playing at a country show.
I would pay to see that. I would actually
they just don't book bands at non-rock shows or metal shows. Like the difference is for DJs, a lot of times people get booked at clubs, and like certain clubs like Live Miami is a massive club. People don't necessarily go to Live Miami to see the DJ. They go because it's Live Miami. You know what I mean? That's what happens more in electronic music than in like venue shows per se. Like a venue to see like a bunch of rappers, like you know what I mean. You know what you're getting into. You know what you're booked for, unless it's like you're going to Webster Hall or some like very classic venue where you're just going to see the venue. But that's what happens, I feel like, more in electronic music, especially at some of these clubs and festivals too. It's like people are like, oh shit, I'm at EDC right now, but the guy I want to see is in 2 hours, but I'm just gonna get to the stage early and just like feel it out or go walk around and try a new thing. So that's kind of what that's the cool thing about electronic music is it's a bit more different. And there's so many different subgenres now more than ever too, where it's just like, I mean, you can play a set in the same tempo and have it sound completely different just from all the subgenres, So
yeah,
it's all.
That's actually a really astute point. That's actually something that I took away the very first time I ever went to like an EDM show. I remember coming from, again, a band setting and playing for a lot of like singer-songwriters and stuff like that. It's a very different vibe, and you're absolutely right. I think in my experience in that world was, people would come to see who they wanted to see, and that's about it. It was very difficult to draw a crowd. Like when you're an opening act, it's very hard unless you're already established. Not many people want to see you. They want to see the person who's headlining. And EDM, in my experience, obviously I'm not sure across the board, but at least in my experience, I think you're right. I think on average, most people will show up early. Doesn't really matter who's opening. Obviously, people know who's opening, but it's the experience of being there, which is something I feel like rock music and other types of music had like 20, 30 years ago, but not as much anymore. And I'm not sure if you feel that way at all, but I'm curious what you think.
No, I think that's very true. I think the overall investment in like a rock band is much greater than in like an individual EDM artist, because people, you might only know one song from a DJ, but when you're going to see a band, you're going to know albums,
Yeah, true. Interesting.
So I think it's just a different investment.
It is a different investment, but I'm glad that you feel like your fans are actually investing a lot in you. I think like you are actually succeeding quite a bit. And it's really cool to see that you are putting out music that people like. You transitioned from what you were doing, and now it's actually working for me. So I'm curious. I want you to talk to me a little bit about some of the stuff that you've got going on, some of the stuff that's going to be coming out soon. I know that by the time that this episode comes out, it'll be very close to Thanksgiving, and you got something going out. So walk me through some of the cool stuff you've got going on, man.
Yeah. We have a new song coming out on Thanksgiving. Not sure if this interview is going to air before or after, but it's on Don Diablo's label, Hexagon, which we're super stoked about.
He's an idol for us.
Yeah, so. We've been his music and listening to him since before we were even really doing anything with our careers. So it was pretty cool to sign a track there because we've looked up to him for a long time. So we're super stoked about that. November 28th, we got our first show back in over 8 months. We're doing a drive-in show in Anaheim, city right next to us,
nice.
With Eudoro, Morgan Page, a bunch of legends. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're super stoked to get back on the decks.
Hell yeah, man! I'm curious for you guys. Have you attended a drive-through show yet or drive-in show?
No, we haven't. We've seen a bunch of footage, but this will be our first one. So
it looks interesting. It looks very interesting. And do you feel like it's actually going to happen in November, or is it going to be pushed back at all? Because that's happened quite a few times. But I'm wondering.
I don't know. I guess it just depends on like everyone's predicting this. Like I guess this second wave that's happening of coronavirus to get worse with winter. So I guess we'll see. I mean,
we're going to be optimistic and say
yeah. We're hopeful because we really miss performing and we really want it to happen because we just want to have some fun with the crowds again. And the venue's taking like all like the precautions. They've been doing it for I think a month or two now, having like a bunch of events on weekends, and there's never been anything bad happen. So yeah, they're everyone's taking all the precautions. You have to wear a mask, so it's good. It's going to be really safe, and it's going to be really fun.
I love it. Now, before I let you guys go, I'm curious, when it comes to some of the musical inspirations that you're getting right now, where do you guys see, I guess I'm curious, like, where are some of the places in terms of genres, where are some of the places where you're drawing inspiration from? Like, are there some interesting abstract musical ideas that you feel like could be useful in the very near future? Maybe some genres that aren't popular right now that you feel or anticipate might blow up in the very near future?
Yeah, I mean that's the good thing about music and electronic specifically is it's ever changing and it's constantly changing. I guess we were just talking about this with Sirius XM with BPM in an interview. We were saying like for us at least because we spend a lot of time in the car and so we're always listening to channels like BPM and stuff. So it's really cool for us. Like we're always hearing like I guess like the popping more vocal tracks at the time. So we do draw a lot of inspiration just being in the cars and listening to like our favorite radio stations or our favorite artists like we were talking about earlier. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to like pinpoint certain genres that are coming up because like the past year, 2 years, maybe even a little bit more, like this like tech house wave has just been going crazy in the clubs, and we've loved playing a little bit of tech in our sets, but we're not really making too much. So I guess it'll be interesting to see as sounds keep changing and stuff over the couple
Where it's
of years.
gonna go.
But for now, I mean, honestly, we have so much unreleased music that's done and signed. So through next year, our sound's going to be pretty like consistent to what it is right now. And we're stoked about it though. We really have worked hard to like really lock in this sound, and we feel like we've taken stuff that we think is going to be popular in the future as well as stuff that we've been influenced on, and are just combining all these different elements, and we feel like we really have a strong sound moving forward.
I love it, guys. I mean, it's working. You guys are doing some creative, cool things. You broke through the European market. I mean, I feel like you've established yourselves in a way where it's impressive, and you've positioned yourself in a way where I don't think you're going to be stopped at all. I think you're actually going to push right on through, and 2021 is probably going to be an even bigger, better year for both of you. I'm anticipating that.
Yeah, well, we hope so. Our heads are down, and we're really looking forward to the future and to put in some more work and get some more music out there.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Nick and Mark, also known as NiiKO and Swae, I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the show and for talking to me just for a little bit about your creativity and where your music is headed. And I can't wait until it comes out because I think it's going to be cool. And I'm definitely watching your career with great anticipation.
Hey, well, thanks for the opportunity, Eddie, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks for having us, and for everybody listening, we really appreciate you guys. So shout out to everybody.